work. There we go. It's working. Yep. Okay, 1 second. All right. Hey, check on your computer so you can hear yourself.
What do you mean?
Your computer's not out?
No, why should it be out?
So you can like research and shit. Yeah. You don't have to. But I recommend. Anyway. Okay. So 1 second.
I don't know if I'm in a very good mood for this right now.
Well, we're going. Hazy, what's up, man? How are you? So Philip doesn't like to be on camera. So can you guys hear him? First, let's do a test.
Hey, everybody.
Let's say something.
Profound?
Yeah, something profound.
I have nothing to say that's profound
He
right now.
has nothing profound to say, but can you hear him is the question. And we will jump right in and start talking about stuff.
How many people are we talking with?
My voice is repeating. I hate this stream shit. All right, why is my voice repeating? Let's see.
Go to full duplex. Remember that?
Hang on. He can hear you. Technically, I can hear, but very quiet, almost far away. You need to put your headphones on. The speaker's got to go off. Motherfucker. All right. Let me go get my headphones. All right, entertain the folks. Because they can hear you fine. A little far away. But they're hearing me repeating because I guess my speakers are on. So let me go get my headphones.
Your speakers aren't on. We're not hearing you.
I know, but maybe it's, I don't know.
I don't know.
5 people.
I'm just going to talk to the open air. Yeah. Well, let's see. What can I tell you guys? David kind of suckered me into this tonight. I'm doing my best, but I'm not in the best frame of mind. But we'll see. I'm sure David will get me pissed off, and then I'll start talking.
It's like the Hulk.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Hulk.
All right, well, let's see. Who do we got? You're doing well. I'm hesitant. Now, what do you mean you're hesitant, Paisy, about what the stream will be? But you're going to keep an open mind. I don't know what that means. That is what Hazy is saying. Paisy is saying, I'm sorry.
We don't know what the stream will be either. Exactly.
Okay, so tell me, Proxy, can you hear this better? Is everybody good with the voice, with the audio to some extent? I think you really should sit there. If you're not going to be on camera, at least you can be closer to the microphone. Move it where? All right. So anyway, all right, say something now. They're saying you were hard to hear.
Can you guys hear me better now?
Okay, he'll talk louder if you can. He'll let us know. There's a bit of a...
Everything's going through your microphone, so...
Well, let's see. Headphones are better. Fuck it, we're going to go. Okay, we'll just talk loud. You're good. He's super far away, so just talk louder when you can. He's right. He moved closer, though. All right, you guys, so we're going to talk about a handful of things on this little experiment. We've done one of these before. I don't know if you guys have all been in to that other one. Oh, Magnus is here. See, Magnus, you were the one who motivated me to want to do this, because I was talking to Magnus on Twitter about the whole cop thing, and then I started talking to Philip outside the house about the whole cop thing, and Philip always has a lot of interesting views on this stuff, most of which I agree with, or eventually agree with. So maybe he will convince you. And anyway, the point being is, I said, let's talk about a handful of things. Let's start talking about the cops. This Paisy says...
Start the easy ones first.
Okay, fine. We're going to start with the easy ones, but hang on. Paisy says, I'm always hesitant when people present political ideas to me in terms of not just agreeing, but whether I will find the ideas offensive or presented in a way I disagree with. Yeah, it does. I mean, I agree.
There's no way to talk about this subject without offending everybody.
Wait, offending everybody or offending someone?
Anyone at any given moment. It's too sensitive, but I mean, Jesus, if people are going to talk about it, we're never going to get anything resolved.
And that's why Paisy's here with an open mind. But yes, let's start with the easy one.
Sulu is the easy.
We're going to start with the Sulu, with the easy Sulu. So let me.
Now we can dispense with in like 5
Okay,
words.
so let's bring Sulu up. There he is. Now you got to, Philip. You can't see this, but it's basically Captain Kirk looking at us, looking into Sulu's. I don't know what this is. Something on the bridge, and he says, "Are you watching porn again, Sulu? So where are the women?" This is the old school one. Right? So I don't think it was ever debated that Sulu was gay back in the day. It was never, right? That was never even a thing on the original Star Trek.
No, it totally wasn't. And Gene Roddenberry, I mean, if you listen to or read what George Takei says about it, he tells a whole story about back in the day asking Gene Roddenberry to have some gay characters or a gay character, and Roddenberry was like, I'd really like to do that, but at the time he was like, if I tried to do that, then I wouldn't be able to address any other political topics at all because the show would be canceled. And politically at that point, he was probably right. But Sulu obviously was never meant to be a gay character, and I never really was a big fan of the original Star Trek. I'm a big fan of all the others, except maybe not so much Deep Space Nine. But I'm almost certain that Sulu's character was heterosexual, and at least in some storylines.
But does it matter? Like, does anybody care? Does anybody care? Like, there's people who are now saying, "Oh, Sulu, who's the actor who plays Sulu? George Takei shouldn't be like, oh, he shouldn't be gay. He should be straight in the new one. The new one's an alternate universe anyway. If you want to get specific,
Yeah, but
it's not even the real Sulu. It's a different timeline.
Then as a fan, then I get really pissed with all these alternate universe imagining of things. Like the Star Trek universe is big enough that you can tell all kinds of new stories, and there's no need to go back and rewrite the history of the universe. That always makes me angry. I don't see why you have to do that. But Takei is, I would say that if you want to have gay characters in Star Trek, absolutely you should do it. I mean, but there's no need to rewrite a character that's already been well established over decades, and I think that's I think that's what Takei is kind of upset about. Is is just that simple point, and it's just kind of weird because I think in any other people are like, God, I mean, Takei is a big advocate and a LGBT spokesperson in some respects, and you would think of all people he would just be overjoyed at this, but the fact that he isn't has got a lot of people sort of like rubbing, scratching their heads. But I think it makes perfect sense. I think he's right. It's like this is not what the character was meant to be. It's not what Roddenberry wanted it to be. And
I guess I just don't hold in. Maybe it's just in general. I don't care if they said he was gay or if they said he was. It's like James Bond going to be played by a woman or Doctor Who going to be played by a woman. Who cares? I mean, I'm not saying people don't care like they shouldn't care if they do. I'm just saying that isn't that part of the fun of fiction is that every new people come in and they put their spin on it. And
well, I don't know. Last month, everyone was talking about making Captain America gay, and it's like then people are up in arms. It's like, well, that's an established character, and he's never been gay before, and people are upset about it. And I think, yeah, I mean, there are plenty of comic book heroes that we can have that are gay or lesbian or whatever, but to rewrite Captain America is just kind of weird.
Well, he's not really. They're not rewriting Captain America.
Well, what is he?
It was Elsa they were going to rewrite. They weren't even rewrite. They were saying that she could be gay in the Frozen sequel, and they never touched on it in the first one, so she could be gay.
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about Elsa.
But Captain America, that's not a real thing. Marvel hasn't come out and said they're going to make him gay.
No, I know. When people started talking about it, that was the objection. It was like, well, why would you make some character gay that we already have established for a long, long time has been straight?
So Digital Gibbs says, does making him gay have a significant impact on the plot? Wait, or is this pandering? So we should get to the question, I think. But it's funny. It's like, what would it? How could you have a significant impact on the plot if you were gay? It's like, what would that even be?
Well, I mean, I suppose the person that whoever the gay character is, could have. I mean, just like anybody that has a straight romantic counterpart in a story, who knows what could happen between those two characters. One of them could be a good guy, one could be a bad
No, I know, but whether they're gay or straight, it's just the romantic interest. The fact that it's a man or a woman, I'm saying,
yeah. But
how do you write a specifically gay story versus it being?
You just write the same story.
That's what I'm saying. So when he's saying, does him being gay have a significant impact on the plot? Him being in a relationship may be significant, but whether it's with a man or a woman,
Well, I mean, it depends on what the plot is. I mean, you could write any story you want about that. I mean, you could make it controversial in that universe or in that storyline if you wanted to.
Paisley says, "Don't worry, Kirk. This is him. Sulu's talking. Don't worry, Kirk. I have both seduced and married Khan. He is now a softer person and no longer at war.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to rewrite Star Trek characters to be politically correct or whatever, let's make Captain Kirk stop being a misogynist.
Well, yeah, that's he's they're asking if if they're pandering by making him gay, and I guess
No.
you don't think them going out of their way to make Sulu gay is them saying, hey, let's be diverse for the sake of diverse, versus going, this is for the sake of the story.
No,
if you're suggesting he was already established as a straight character,
I wouldn't. I don't consider it pandering in any event to put any gay character in a story if, for whatever reason, because gay people exist, so they should be part of stories. Now, to make it Sulu, I think it's just kind of stupid, but I still don't think it's pandering. But I mean, the idea of having a gay character in Star Trek kind of makes sense. It's been hinted at forever in that universe, but they've just never had sort of the bravery to actually overtly write a story about it. And now they don't have to be so brave because it's not as controversial. So I don't know if it's pandering. I just think we should be seeing more of a realistic depiction of the real world, and certainly the world of 300 or 400 years from now. It should probably just be no big deal anymore, I would think. So no, I don't consider it pandering.
Simon Pegg, who wrote it, said we could have introduced a new gay character, but he or she would have been primarily defined by their sexuality, seen as the gay character, rather than simply for who they are. And isn't that tokenism?
It depends on what his storyline is and how. I mean, I see that point, but at some point, you have a choice between rewriting characters that already exist or introducing gay characters to make the world more realistic, the world of the story more realistic. And either way, you're going to get somebody that says, oh, that's the token gay character. What is that? Oh,
that's the dog outside.
Uh,
He disagrees. He wants to jump in.
Okay.
He doesn't agree. No, the dog.
Oh, the dog disagrees. Oh, well.
Okay, but what Star Trek character do you think, if there was, okay, here's the game. If there was a closeted Star Trek character who would come out and we would discover had been gay all along, it would be Q, right?
No, because
Q's good and gay.
Q is completely non-sexual.
Okay, so who's the closeted gay one?
I mean, he did this thing with Janeway at one point, but it wasn't like, who's a class? I mean, that's just, who knows?
It's the game. Oh, this guy says Spock. Proxy says it would be Spock.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see Spock. Now, am I limited now to the original series?
No, any Star Trek that anyone watched. So it's basically Deep Space. What's the one with Picard? Next Gen, original. I don't think anybody actually watched Voyager.
I watched Voyager.
I know. What was the other one first? Enterprise?
Deep Space Nine sucked. Voyager was great.
Q had a son?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And in fact, the actor that played Q's son was, in fact, the actor's real son.
I did not know that. John DeLance is the
John
actor.
DeLance's son had an episode on Voyager, and he played Q's son, and Janeway had to kind of, I think they referred to her as his aunt or whatever, but Q just sort of dropped off his son on Voyager and left and let Captain Janeway raise him.
All right. Well, then we don't know. Who knows? But I will tell you that Riker almost hit me in the Paramount parking lot with his truck.
Yeah, I mean,
That goes unspoken. He almost hit me in his car.
Yeah,
on the set of Star
Kiefer
Trek.
Sutherland almost ran across me on Melrose in his Mazda Miata.
They're assholes.
No, he just was a typical...
Jack Bauer and Riker are assholes. Okay, so let's move on, shall we? To the real two topics at hand.
Yep.
Come to me if you want to go deeper and talk about the Delphic Expanse. Is that from what's called Voyager?
That's Voyager, yeah.
I want to get this game Star Trek Frontiers, which is like an $80 board game, and I think I'm going to get it for the next Bartlett Jones game night, which we kind of don't do anymore. We've done a few, but we got to do some more. We only did like 4, and then we ended up playing Arkham Horror, which was so complex that it kind of turned everybody off. But anyway, I want to play that. Anyway, here's the point. the main thing we wanted to talk about. So I got talking to Magnus, who's on the stream right now, and we were talking. I'll show you guys. I tweeted out this photo. It was this woman, and this was a shot in Baton Rouge where there's a bunch of protesters, or I don't know if they're. I mean, it's the Black Lives Matter movement, I believe, or they were protesting or protesting what's been going on in the last week. And she basically takes this assault rifle and aims it at the crowd, yelling at them to get back, even though they're just standing around, at least as far as we could tell in the video, and protesting, as is their right. And then she aims it at the fucking reporter's camera. And then, thank God, one of her fellow cops comes up. And you can see this on video. It's all over the net. And kind of, I don't know what he says to her, but he basically is just like, chill the fuck out. And he kind of moves her to the back of the line and she goes away. And I saw this and I was just, I don't like this. This is obnoxious to me. I think this is getting in the way of people's right to protest peacefully. And the way I see it is it's another one of those, macho cops who's just kind of like thinking they're above the law and they're there to kind of take people's constitutional rights away to protest peacefully. And Magnus chimes in, and we had a bit of a back and forth, which I thought was interesting and engaging and made me think. And that's why we wanted to do this. Now, you haven't seen that, right? But
I haven't seen the video. I saw
the still.
It's not the first time that something like that has happened.
Yes.
The other, I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't too long ago where another cop raised his gun, pointed his gun at the crowd.
Yeah, that was the Ferguson thing, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure that to me just speaks more to just a real lack of training. I obviously have never been in the military or the police force, but I'm pretty sure that it's a pretty common understanding that you don't point your gun at anyone unless you are intending to fire at them. You're not even supposed to have your finger on the trigger unless you're supposed to be, intending to fire. And you don't fire your gun unless you intend to kill. So if this police officer raises a rifle at a crowd of people, I don't know, maybe she got freaked out, maybe she got scared, but that's bad training. You're not supposed to do that.
Okay, and this guy's proxy says, and Magnus is saying that was his argument, he says it can be stress related too. Facing a large crowd at night can make armed people do stupid stuff. And my whole thing, and a lot of people, are agreeing with that, or a couple people are agreeing with that. And I disagree with that. I think we have to hold the cops who are trained to do this stuff to a higher standard. It's like, I'm sorry you got freaked out. If you're a professional police officer who has been entrusted with a weapon and the ability to arrest people and to shoot people and kill people, one would like to assume or demand that that person has been trained to be in an environment of a peaceful fucking protest that could go violent. And if they can't handle it, maybe they're not ready to be in that position as a cop yet. We have to hold them to those standards?
Yeah, no, I think that's what I was saying. The fact that she got freaked out is not an excuse for what she did. She's supposed to be a professional. She's supposed to be trained to handle those situations. And cops, military, anybody with a gun for that matter, civilians with a gun, you never point your gun at anyone unless you intend to fire. And that's just sort of like rule number one. So if that particular police officer wasn't able to control herself, then there's only two possibilities that I see. One, she was actually threatened to the point where she felt it necessary to defend herself, in which case, why didn't she fire the gun? Or
yeah, she was doing it. There's no way, because she was like holding it up and going back, get back.
Yeah, that's completely
and that's on video. That's not her going, oh my God, I thought the fucking Hulk was running at me.
She's using the point of her gun to push people back, then that is bad training. And she needs to be retrained. She needs to be removed from the streets until she gets retrained.
This guy says, Moku, difference between professional police officer and professional SWAT member. The police ain't trained to fight a mob. if things erupt, especially knowing how BLM, Baton Rouge, I don't know what
Black
BL,
Lives Matter.
oh, is pro cop killing.
Okay, well that's bullshit.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay.
And yet no thieves allowed. Adam, I'm sure there's all kinds of that stuff going on right now. I don't agree. Okay, now, Black Lives Matter is pro cop killing. I'm not sure where you're getting that. Are there people in that movement who would sort of suggest that that's the case? Sure. But that's like saying, I mean, there are people in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party who have all kinds of ideas that I don't agree with. I don't think, though, that you'd find that in their party platform rules or whatnot. I mean, where is that?
Well, first of all, there's a difference between SWAT, Special Weapons and Tactics units, um, and people that are trained in crowd control and riot control. They're not necessarily the same thing. A SWAT team is a very specialized unit within the police force that typically deals with active shooters, EOD, bomb disposal. They're heavier artillery and weapons, things of that nature, hostage situations. Those people are the people that you see out on the streets dressed as stormtroopers are, for the most part, just your average daily cop, and most of those people have been trained in crowd control and riot control, but not necessarily SWAT and special weapons. Now, I find it even more difficult to believe that woman that had the gun, the cop that had the gun, was a SWAT member, because they are highly trained.
Yeah, I don't. It said, in fact, she has a vest that says police.
Yeah, well, they'll all say police.
Well, it says SWAT if it's SWAT.
Sometimes it says SWAT, sometimes it says sheriff. It depends on what you are. It may say SWAT, it may not.
But yeah, if she is SWAT, then it's even worse.
Then it's even more difficult to believe.
And I think especially, let's see, it's old Fox News watching people who can't understand how a 21st century movement can be distributed and not have a central organized body. Yeah, all I'm saying is I don't believe I mean, here's the deal, though. Even if Black Lives Matter was all about killing cops, and all they did was go out and stand on the street and talk about how they wanted to shoot cops in the fucking head all day long, until they actually break the law, the cops should be there to protect them, just like they would be there to protect the fucking old lady, Tea Party knitting society. That's the way that shit goes. I mean, that's their right to have these horrible, awful ideas. And the cops, underneath their skin could be fuming, but you don't get to pick and choose who you defend. You defend the people who are citizens.
No, I mean, there's a line there, though. I mean,
there's no way. What's the what line?
Well, if they are inciting violence.
Well, yeah, but by how? How do you incite violence?
Well, I mean, if you get a crowd all riled up and you're screaming, "Kill the police! Kill the police! Kill the police!" and the crowd is getting more rowdy and more out of control, at some point, that crosses a line from free speech into creating.
Okay, but that's irrelevant of what they're saying to get the crowd riled up. If they're saying magic words that make them want to throw rocks, my point is it's irrelevant what they're saying. You're talking now about they're going from having a philosophy that they're sharing peacefully to actually getting a crowd riled up and being violent, or on the road to being violent.
It was your example. I mean, you were.
Yeah, but they're not actually doing anything.
I know, but you were saying even if they were standing, that's what you said, even if they were standing on the edge of the street or whatever, yelling, "Kill the police, kill the police," that they still have a right to do it. And I'm like, well, to a point, but there's a line where that kind of language could easily be understood to be inciting people to violence.
Okay, but let's say in the case of this, it hadn't, right? Because these people, at least what you see on camera, and I get that not everything you see on camera is the whole story, but what you see on camera here is people are simply protesting.
And they were also not, although I think at one protest somewhere, there were some people that were saying, kill the cops or whatever, but I don't think that's very widespread, and it's not demonstrative of the whole Black Lives Matter movement in any way. But I don't think that what they are saying is why there is so much sort of violence and unrest and over aggressiveness right now in Baton Rouge and Atlanta and wherever else it's going on at the moment. I think everybody is very, very tense, and the cops are naturally afraid of another Dallas happening, and the protesters are on edge, and everyone's angry, and all it takes is just one little moment that can spark everything into chaos.
Yeah, but when that moment happens, they have a right then to behave the way that they're behaving. But right now,
Yeah, but
that moment has not occurred
right, but
in these specific protests.
no, it hasn't. But the police do have a certain responsibility to keep that moment from occurring. If it's if it,
That's Minority Report shit then.
well, no, I mean if again, it's like you have to have a sense of the crowd you're in that you're trying to control, and if it becomes obvious to the people in charge on the police side of things that things are starting to get a little crazy, that things are getting to that point where it might spark into something very dangerous, I think they do have the authority to shut it down. I mean, to protect everybody.
Yeah, but you not just based on assumptions or gut instinct. It's got to be based on action. I mean, come on. There's no way in the world that if a protest were shut down and then they went to court and the judge like, well, why'd you shut it down? Well, I just had a gut instinct this was going to go bad.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, you do have to allow the police to use.
Oh, hang on. Hang on. I just don't want to forget this. Adam Demoy is saying Black Lives Matters are paid protesters by George Soros and his Open Society NGO. Come on, dude.
Come on. Man.
Come on, really?
Really, all those people, or show me the paychecks that all those people are getting from George Soros, please. Can you show me all of those thousands of people marching in all these cities? Can you show me their W-2s? Show me where they get the money from George Soros, and I'll shut up.
But how about, I mean, to watch the videos of what happened in Baton Rouge and to watch the video of what happened to that guy and where was he, who got shot through the window?
St. Paul, Minnesota.
And to act as if, oh, this is just some political thing by the far left. I mean, come on. That's, I mean, what happened in Dallas, nobody in the world except crazy people would say that was a good thing. But to act as if, and that guy clearly, as it's coming out, he had his own issues. Obviously, he would, blah, blah, blah. But to act as if there are not a targeted group of people in the country who are at a point where they're saying the system isn't working for us. We're trying to do it peacefully. We're trying, to deal with it in the legal way, and the system continually basically shits in our face. Do I think they should be doing what this one guy did in Dallas? They, meaning anyone who believes this. I'm not just specifically referring to Black Lives Matter. I'm thinking to anybody who feels that the cops, the sort of the authority figure with guns in this country are basically telling them how they should live and what they can and can't do. I don't think anyone should do those things. But I also think I understand what other option do they have? Society, it looks more and more when we see these videos like they're failing them. I mean, I don't know if it was my kids and I was worried about walking down the street and stuff just to go get some fucking Diet Coke at the grocery store that I was going to be pulled over and shot. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how we can't have a great deal of sympathy for that movement, but maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go quite that far, but I mean, I don't think that escalating violence is going to do anything but make things worse. But I mean,
what else would you have? I mean, this is chronic in this country. What else? Do I think violence is the answer? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, end of the day, the only time things really change tends to be when there's revolution.
Well, I mean, we.
Because when has this ever gotten better?
Well, I mean, we used to have Jim Crow. Civil rights civil rights movement was peaceful for the most part. It accomplished. It didn't.
The civil rights movement was peaceful.
Yeah. I mean,
in Alabama and with the hoses and the dogs.
Yes,
and
but that was the violence coming from the other side of the issue. The people that were protesting were practicing civil disobedience, and that was peaceful. Now, it doesn't mean there wasn't ever an incident of violence from one end to the other, but the overall idea
was civil disobedience and peaceful protest, and it did accomplish a lot. It didn't finish the job. There's still obviously it's not. It hasn't finished the job. Obviously, it hasn't fixed the problem, but it did manage to accomplish a lot. So it's possible, but I also understand that there is a point where if people feel like no amount of going through the system ever works.
Right. I could see them
Right?
starting to feel that way, if not always feel that way.
Right. I mean, I think that some people will get so frustrated that they're like, well, they're either going to kill me or I'm going to kill them. Now, at that point, you have war in one way or another.
Yep.
And at the end of that day, whoever went, you still haven't solved the problem, even if you win the war. At the end of a war, everybody's still got to pick up the pieces, and you've still got to all sit down and figure out how to fix the problem that started the war.
Okay, so why? Okay, fundamentally, maybe it comes down to then a question of, do you think there is a biological component to racism then? Because
No.
we were talking earlier, Philip and I both grew up in the South, where obviously there was a great deal of racism, and we grew up. I guess you still consider yourself Jewish. I haven't considered myself Jewish since I was like 7, but we were raised in a Jewish family. We we were around black people frequently. There was never a concept of really. You knew people were black and people were white, but I never walked around thinking blacks are more or whites are less or vice versa. It just kind of was. These were people in your life, and so I look at it and I just can't get my head around. And this is so hard to say without sounding like I'm trying to pat myself on the back. I genuinely cannot get my head around why people give a shit. And that's why I'm asking, do you think it's biological? Because if you say there'll be a war and then you still have to pick up the pieces, then ultimately, how do you deal with these people who are so fucked up that they look, literally, especially a lot of people probably watching this stream and who follow the work that I do and all the movies that we all see. Fucking aliens and people with green skin and blue fur and all. What does it matter to people? Like, why, if it's not biological, how are you ever going to fix it then?
Well, I'm glad that it's not biological because that gives us a chance to actually fix it.
How?
If it was biological, there would be not much we could do to fix that. So, are you asking me to solve racism?
I'm just wondering what you think.
Well, I think at the end of the day, almost every social problem we have in this country will be solved by better education.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It always comes back for me to giving people the opportunity to be well educated, and I don't mean necessarily knowing a lot of facts. I mean knowing how to think rationally, how to form a premise, how to argue logically, how to find out information about things you don't know about. These are the things, but instead we go in the other direction and we sit everybody in front of their iPads and reality TV and zombify everyone, and I just think it's really dangerous.
Well, okay, two things to that. Well, first one from Paisley, he says he watched so much Star Trek that it honestly partially attributes that to his views. I do think people who grew up around geek culture are probably psychologically healthier as adults. I think there are lessons.
I think we ought to take a trip to Comic-Con and we'll revisit that.
I think when it comes to these issues, if you take a trip to Comic-Con, you may find socially stunted people more as a group there than you'll find everywhere else. But I think you'll find more accepting people at a place like Comic-Con than you will, just walking down the street or going to the All-Star game that's happening in the same place Comic-Con is going to be in 2 weeks.
Probably.
And then this guy goes back to what you were telling me you were talking to a lady about today. He said, education with black-centric schools absolutely is an issue. This is from Jazz Galaxy. It traces back to when the government made it illegal for black people to read and write. And that's the second time I've heard that today. I didn't even know that.
Yes.
When was that illegal?
Up until like right after the Civil War. It's like 1870 something before it was legal. 1873, I want to say. Um, but I mean, and that's the extreme example. But I mean, you look at the defunding of public education in this country; it gets worse and worse and worse. Everybody wants to privatize education on the right, especially. And what does that end up with? Well, if you can afford a good education, you're gonna be in power, and the people that are ignorant are very easily controlled because they only know what you tell them, and they don't know how to go find things out for themselves. They don't know how to recognize a bad argument and logical fallacies and all of these things. They just, if they haven't been trained to think in that way, and I'm not just talking about the inner cities and minorities, I'm talking all the way across the board in public education. We don't even mandate that people learn about civics in this country anymore. If people don't even know how their own government works, how in the hell can they make rational decisions?
Which brings me to the thing that I get into arguments with people on the internet a lot about, which is I think this goes to a total lack of understanding of civics and of the Constitution, which is when they say, "Oh, you should just you do what the police tell you, and you'll be fine. If you would just stop resisting the police, there'd be no problem." And to me, that is so fucked up. And you said something earlier that so many times a lot of people who wave the flag and call themselves patriots and call themselves true Americans are the first ones to just fall in line the minute an authority figure shows up with a badge and says, you have to do this.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, we ought to want to and be able to respect our police. I don't think you can have a safe, civilized society without the police and without a healthy respect for authority. However, if the authority figures, and I'm not just talking about the police now, I'm talking about from the president on down, people in power over and over and over again break rules, break laws, and walk away with no ramifications, no responsibility, no consequences, while other people that aren't in power go to prison over and over and over again. And at some point, it's like you cannot just demand at the point at the end of a pointed gun, respect me. You have to behave in a respectable way. And if you consistently, over decades and decades, treat citizens with disrespect and ignore the laws of this country and act and as if you are above those laws and you are not answerable to those laws, and then you are surprised when people don't respect the badge. Well, of course they don't. You have to behave you have to behave, you know, like you're a police officer in a free, open society and not some stormtrooper from North Korea.
Proxy says, aren't blindly patriotic people respecting of the police because they see authority of any manner as patriotic too? Maybe. I mean, I've always looked at the police as normal people doing a job that are there to basically uh, uh, protect the law and to make sure the law is being followed, and then but not to be above the law. And I see that lately all the time. I just put this picture up of that thing you sent me with all of those cops, and you can find this on the internet. Philip sent me this. Where there were hundreds of them. Remember the thing you sent me, where they went into this person's fucking front yard.
Oh yeah, that was just I guess today or yesterday in
Baton Rouge. And it's like there would be people who get into arguments with me on the internet as if, well, they're the police. Something must have been going on in that house. It's like that's not their decision to make. Their decision is to follow the law. If something had been going on in the house that they could point to and say, legally speaking, we have a right to step onto this person's property, that's one thing. But they just fucking busted into this guy's front yard.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
I think someone said they were claiming that they were following or chasing after somebody that ran into the yard, and therefore
hundreds of cops.
I'm not justifying what they said I'm saying that's the excuse they gave, and I'm like, look, it's clear that's not what was happening. If somebody ran into the yard that you were chasing, then yeah, send a few people in after it. But a wall of police, 3 or 4 people thick, deep, stampeding into this person's private property on her front yard, ridiculous.
Yeah, and that is why I think there is this problem is that, people, yeah, you're right. I mean, even look at Hillary Clinton, and that's the last thing I was thinking we could talk about, not yet, but about voting and stuff, and how both of these candidates are, in my opinion, terrible. But yeah, I mean, there are people who are serving jail time for a lot less than what she did, according to the FBI.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, people are just like, I don't trust these people anymore.
Yeah.
And so, this may very well be the consequences of that, but I don't know. Is there a way to turn up the audio on Philip? Not really. He doesn't have a mic and he doesn't want to get on camera, so just talk louder.
Well, you've got the little headphones.
I know,
on,
but I have to have the headphones on.
Well, the only microphone is the one right under your chair.
Well, I will say he will speak louder, and if we do another one of these, we'll get a proper mic. We've done a couple of these. Whether we do more or not really depends on how interested people are in watching them. How quickly the email scandal gets brushed aside, I guess, to some extent. I mean, look, you're right, but there's maybe I'm wrong here, but the way you write that sort of implies there's some sort of conspiracy behind it. Maybe not. Maybe you're not saying that, but I mean, when you saw the videos of those 2 guys getting shot this week, I mean, goodness gracious, the guy who was selling CDs in front of the store, and how the cops just conveniently don't have their body cameras. Oh yeah, they fell off. Sorry, both of them fell off.
And the one that's supposedly supposed to be on the dashboard inside the.
It's just, what a crock of shit. I'm sorry.
And this is why everyone's like, oh, people are so happy about body cameras and think that's going to solve the problem. When these technologies first started coming out, I was one of the first people saying that, of the people that I knew anyway, hey, this is not going to do anything because these cops they're just going to say, oh, my camera broke. And of course, that's what they're going to say, and that's exactly what we see happening. It's never.
But I mean, should they? I mean, these are cops. They work for us. They should be periscoping their body cams up to the fucking cloud. That's what they should be doing. And if you want to sit there and fucking watch Officer Schlotnick's fucking body cam, that's up to you.
Well, I don't think that's true.
They're state employees and city employees.
But they also do a very dangerous job, and there are times when their location and their activity needs to be, a little bit protected, particularly if they're in a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be able to,
Okay, but there's sure, I agree, but there's got to be a better solve than this.
Well, I mean, the only real ultimate solve is to fucking train people better and teach people, so that they behave properly in the first place and don't have to go into all these situations with this attitude that the public is the enemy. And that's kind of what it feels like.
Well, you said they were having, and I read something earlier today from somebody on Facebook about them having to meet quotas and it becoming like, they're the enemy because they go into areas where they feel that way about the people that they can arrest and get away with it.
Yeah, and so that's why, it's like, is it racist? Are there racist cops? Yes. Is all of this about racism? Not necessarily. I mean, I think it had. We were talking about quotas. It's like I was telling you earlier today. I don't even trust crime statistics in this country anymore because, if you think about it, crime statistics are derived from arrest records, and arrest records in almost every precinct in this country are determined by quotas. So if you tell cops, go out into the community and don't come back at the end of the month without 30 arrests, 30 drug busts, and 300 speeding tickets, and 10 whatever. Well, surprise, surprise, they're going to come back with those numbers because their job depends on it. And then you use those records to determine what your crime statistics are and say, look, we've got 30 drug violations this month, or 300 speeders this month. Isn't this an awful problem we have with speeding? Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe, if you weren't sending people out to look for problems where maybe they don't even exist, at least not in the numbers that you expect to exist, and then you use these crime statistics to justify beefing up the law enforcement and adding more tanks and more heavy artillery and militarized. So, I think quotas don't make any sense to begin with. I think cops need to be going out and finding, if they find someone breaking the law, then they need to do their jobs. But to assume that everyone, that there must be X percentage of people at any given moment breaking the law, and it's our job to go get X percent of that, is just sort of stupid.
So the reason I put a wizard up here, people are like, why is there a wizard here? My solution, it's not a real solution, but I wish it was a solution, is every police force should have this kind of warrior lawyer guy who follows them around with like the law and tells them what they can and can't do. That's my theory. Because you watch all these videotapes on YouTube of the cops trying to, do things, and then people show them that the cops don't have that authority. They don't have training. They don't know what they're really allowed to do. A lot of these cops, I'm sorry, not all of them, by all means, not all of them. And I'm so tired of having to preface it with that. It's like, you know what? I get not all cops are bad. I get most cops aren't bad. Blah, 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 blah. But we're fucking talking about the ones that are, because they're the ones that are in the news and they're the ones that are pissing off the people. Okay, so.
Yeah, and you're also talking about all of the quote unquote good cops who see the bad cops
and they don't do shit.
And do nothing.
Yeah.
So, by the way, if you were a police officer sworn to uphold and protect the law and enforce the law, and no one in this nation is above the law, then if another cop breaks the law in front of you, you need to be arresting the cop.
That's right.
That's just what your job is.
I agree. All right, here's what we're going to do. Warhammer Space Marines have that type of person. Oh, cool. Well, there you go. See? So there's a lot of commenting happening on the side here. We're going to try something just so you guys don't watch and feel ignored. We'll do like a quick, any specific comment or question we'll answer just for like the next 5 minutes, and we'll spend like 20 seconds, 30 seconds on it so you guys can all be heard. So we'll start with Paisley. What if we just do better ongoing psychological testing and training? What if we just hired people who actually cared about the law? I would love that. I would love to pay more of my money in taxes to hire better police and have better training.
Yeah, I would say that we ought to flip around the pay scales a lot in this country. I think police, fire, EMT, teachers, they all need to be making six figures, and politicians need to be doing it for virtually nothing. But with that, if you're going to be making six figures, then you ought to be qualified to make the six figures. So we ought to make these jobs lucrative enough that you want to incentivize people to go out and get advanced training, maybe even require at least an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, even if you're going to be making six figures. And then you get people that have, psychological training, all of the advanced training that they need, and for that matter, training in civics and government and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and basic legal. They don't need to be lawyers, but they need to have some classes in the law.
Right. So we agree. Because we got to get them. Yeah. Kiba Fox, has anyone asked who he'd vote between Hillary and Donald Trump? We're about to talk about that in a second. Most of these cops are returning war vets with PTSD. I'm sure some of them are, and that's, we should be spending more money on mental health for everyone, including veterans. Hiring is one thing, but making sure that the person being hired is mentally just and has the open beliefs that can't have prejudice against a group of people. You can be the smartest person in the world, but still a racist. Yeah, I don't know how you weed out racist people at the hiring process and still make it legal. But
yeah, I mean, look, again, the problem, yes, there are racist cops. There is racism, but I think a lot of the problems with abuse of power in general has to do more with a lack of understanding of what the limits of the police's power is to begin with, and poor training on the police, and you end up with a lot of people, frankly, right now that maybe have a high school education, maybe don't have but the most basic understanding of the law or whatever, and rarely maybe only whatever the 6 weeks of training or 10 weeks of training that they got when they were going.
Yeah.
And
Paisley says every single person dispensing law should be trained in the law they're dispensing, which is true.
Yeah, I mean, and again, they don't all have to be
lawyers,
doctors of jurisprudence. They don't have to have PhDs, but you ought to at least know enough to really be able to do whatever the job is that you're being paid to do. And yes, I agree that just having a better education isn't the only solve, but I think it weeds out a lot of people that really don't have any business having a badge of authority, much less a gun, when they don't even understand the basics of what the law is. And I think a lot of those people are, I think maybe they don't. This is just, no, I'm not even going to say that. I mean, guessing into people's psychology, I don't know.
Okay. Last topic is this one. Our sister put this up on Facebook, which I like very much, which is this baby crying saying, I don't want to vote for any of these people.
I don't want to. Nikki put that up?
Nikki put that up.
I don't want to vote for any of them either. I want to vote for Bernie Sanders.
So what people tell me, many cops know the law. They just feel it changes when the rubber meets the road. Could be.
Well, it doesn't change when the rubber
Well,
meets the road.
it changes their desire to express it or follow it.
Tough.
Yeah, I know. I don't think he's making an excuse for him. He's explaining why he thinks they behave that way.
Well, then they need to get over it or get a different job.
Yeah. So I tweeted after Hillary Clinton was basically, and I haven't been following it since the FBI guy stood up on did the press conference and basically said, here's all this terrible stuff she did, but we're going to let her go. And we're not going to have charges pushed against her. And other people have done worse things and they're in jail now, but that's the way that goes, blah. And I haven't been following it since. But when I looked at that, I said, I couldn't vote for her at that point. I was just like, and everybody came at me with the same, well, you've got Supreme Court nominations, and Ginsburg was just saying 2 days ago that there's going to actually be possibly more than that we know, hinting that she's going to retire, obviously. And it's irresponsible not to vote. And on one hand, I get that. But I hear that fucking excuse every 4 years.
Yeah,
and it
bullshit.
Never gets any better.
That's why it doesn't get any better.
That's what I think.
That excuse is what people use every time so that they can hold their nose and vote for somebody they don't really like. Well, at least she's better or he's better than the other one. And if we don't vote for one of the top two, then we're throwing away our vote. Well, you know what? That's just bullshit. I'm sorry. But at some point,
the only real solution is to fucking hold your nose and deal with the horrific consequences that ultimately will bring about change. If everybody stays home who hates Hillary Clinton and Trump gets in, as a nightmare as that would be, maybe it means the next time the fucking Democrats would actually put someone up because they know the people will go, look, we're not going to put up with your shitty candidates. Run somebody good and enough of your backroom dealings and your Debbie Wasserman Schultz bullshit, and we'll show up for you guys. But how are they going to learn otherwise?
They're never going to learn that because they're always, how do I put this? I mean, the backroom, first of all, what people don't really get is that there are not two major parties in this country. There's one. And each side puts up a different version of a candidate, but when you really go underneath the hood and see who's pulling the strings in this country, it's the same people with the same money, and they fund both sides of the war, of the election, every time. And no matter what or who gets elected, their issues they always get what they want one way or another, and the rest of us get ignored. And you couple that with people in power not having to be held accountable to the laws that the rest of us are, the cops not having to be held accountable to the laws, and then our votes not counting at all.
Yeah, right.
And our wishes being just completely dismissed. And it used to be that they did it in such a sort of secretive, subtle way that people didn't get it.
And there wasn't social media, and there wasn't the ability to communicate it almost instantly what was really happening.
Yeah, but how many? And that's why you've got to cut the people a little bit of slack that you like to call the conspiracy theorists and the tinfoil hat. All that shit is just a way to shut down arguments that the people in power don't want to talk about. And so we laugh at those people and we call them nutbags and we say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, the truth of the matter is that conspiracies actually occur. Not all the time, and not in all of the exotic and really out there ways necessarily. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a group of people with a bunch of cigars in a boardroom sitting in the dark plotting everything. But at the same time, the factions that hold the real power, and really that at this point just equals the money, um, put things in motion that are going to benefit them. Of course they do. But when that is the only voice that is ever heard, and at some point that is a conspiracy. This stuff, the things that I was saying 10 years ago about how, I was like, when they started militarizing all of our local police departments, I was up in arms. Not literally, figuratively. They were up in arms literally. And I was just like, this is not the way it's supposed to be in America. We're supposed to have a civilian police force. We're not supposed to have the military marching
And
up and down.
somebody tweeted me that, and they said when I was showing this picture of those guys that look like First Order Knights of Kylo Ren bullshit,
Right.
they said, "Oh well, this was Louisiana. That's. I bet the Dallas cops wish they were wearing that or whatever. The Dallas cops were dressed like normal fucking police officers,
Yeah.
and that was actually nice to see. And apparently, the Dallas police officer outreach with their community is excellent in the community and in the country.
Yeah.
And yeah, you look at this picture of the cops in Louisiana. Those aren't fucking cops.
No, those are.
That is crazy, is what that is.
They're more heavily armed than most of our military in Afghanistan right now. Okay?
I don't even understand how that's okay.
And so it's not okay. And so when people like me, decade ago, was saying, hey, this is a sign of something. It's not an accident that all of these tanks are starting to roll down Main Street. You have to wonder why all of this is happening. And is it a conspiracy? Well, no, not in the sense of the X-Files as a conspiracy, but do people in power sense the unrest in the country and sense that before long people are going to start catching on that we're getting away with everything over here and that their lives are just being ignored? And when that happens, well, guess what happens next? Riots. People get to a tipping point and they get fed up. And so in anticipation of that inevitability, well, lo and behold, about 10 years ago, we start arming our police force to prepare for what exactly? This. So when you call me a conspiracy theorist and a tinfoil hat nut job, I'm like, well, I told you so. I'm not crazy. I'm telling you what, you just have to open your eyes and look to see what's going on. This will not end well unless we stop it.
Well, Paisy says, in theory, wasn't the idea for cops in shirts and trousers? I just like he says trousers. Slacks. Little pleats.
Dungarees.
To call in SWAT when needed. I don't see why you need to have this armor as standard. I don't either. And all it does is intimidate. And all it does is threaten. And all it does is make the cops feel not like fellow citizens who happen to be doing a specific job. It makes them feel like fucking RoboCop or Judge Dredd, and it's horrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and let's just, intimidation is a legitimate tactic when it comes to crowd and riot control. It's not an accident that they look intimidating. It's designed to look intimidating. But does Andy Griffith and
that would be a
Arnie,
great high concept movie. Is Andy Griffith time travels to 2016?
I mean,
that would be so awesome.
They need to be walking down Mayberry Main Street, with a fucking tank running behind them? No.
Don Knotts driving the tank. That'd be so great.
Yeah, I mean,
which Judge Dredd? I don't know. The comic, what was it? 2019. I don't forget the name of the comic. Something AD, 2100 AD, and then the movie. Not Stallone. Not Stallone. They shouldn't even be wearing that armor in the first place. That's what SWAT Army is for. I agree. I just think it's. It's harder and harder, and then you see those videos, and I'm sorry, I think as tragic as what happened in Dallas was and is, the onus is on the police at this point to kind of rethink everything from equipment to how they engage with the public to the fact that good cops should be calling bad cops out. And I'm so fucking tired of this brotherhood of blue bullshit. You know what? They don't. If they're going to go with that, it should be to protect and to serve other cops.
Yeah,
Because
well,
instead, it should be that's not what they're there for.
Well, I mean, again, there is an aspect of any kind of dangerous job, whether you're in the military or the police or whatever. There needs to be a certain amount of that sort of fraternity.
Maybe there does need to be.
Hang on,
Well,
let me finish my point. It's not. I'm not saying that those people should be covering for each other, but I don't think we need to eliminate that particular aspect of the job either, because they do need to have each other's backs. Now they don't, but at the end
can't
of the
you
day,
have each other's backs and still be a cop whose first and foremost job is to protect the public and not fellow cops?
yes, of course, but that line is not always so clear.
It's never clear.
Particularly in the heat of a moment or a battle or an incident, who the public is and who the good guys are and who the bad guys are that the cops are trying to deal with. But it's, again, this is not just the cop. If you want to stop the kind of shit that went on in Dallas, if you want to stop all of these riots, then yes, the cops need to be accountable, but the people in power need to be accountable. We have a president that's sitting in office right now that has assassinated an American citizen with no trial, with no habeas corpus, with no due process, without even knowing that he was accused of anything. And before that, we had a president who swore up, down, and sideways that there were weapons of mass destruction, and then there weren't. And then he swore up, down, and sideways that we didn't torture people, and then we do. Swore up, down, and sideways that we aren't spying on Americans, and then we are. I mean, breaking laws, international and national laws, on a scale, an unprecedented scale. And if we really believe that people are not above the law, the president on down, then the thing that we ought to do, if we really want to have the confidence of our own people, and for that matter, the people of the rest of the world, when they see how we behave on the world stage, is we need to say, yep, you know what? Even our president is not above this. And if he broke the law or she broke the law, then guess what? They're going to jail. Or at the very least, we're going to prosecute them for it. And then people might respect the law. But
well, yeah, and I think at that point we are, it's either another country is going to do that and gain dominance, or there will be a revolution here, and on the bones of this country that will be built. I cannot see, because of so many other factors in this country today, that kind of radical rethinking.
Yeah, and I just want to say one other thing to all of the liberals, all of my liberal friends out there that are just, I'm a liberal, believe it or not, but I'm going to say some things that you might agree with. But for all those people out there that are all pissed about all of this abuse of power from the politicians to the police and everything else, and then you turn around and you want to get more guns out of the hands of the civilians and let only those people in power have the firearms. And in order to do it, you're willing to give up your due process rights. You don't give a shit as long as you get the guns. That's foolish. That's the same mistake that we made after 9/11 when we said, I don't care, just keep us safe. Have the Patriot Act. Have the NDAA. Go invade a country without letting Congress declare war. Screw the Constitution. Screw the Bill of Rights. We just want to feel safe. And when that happened and the people on the right were doing it, and a few of us on the left were saying, whoa, 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 hang on. This is unconstitutional. People still have rights. We were said, you're supporting the terrorists. If you're not with us, you're against us. You're un-American, right? Now, those same people want to take away your guns. Now, if you have a problem with the amount of abuse of power in this system as it is right now, imagine what it's going to be when the only people that have any sort of means of defense are going to be the people that are driving the tanks down the streets.
Okay, now I have news for you.
Did I lose everybody now?
David R., we have a problem with David R. He says two things. One thing you're going to like, and I don't know how you're going to square this. David R. says, I like your guest. He's not my guest. He does this with me. It's my brother, Philip. He just doesn't like to be on camera. I don't know why. He says, I like your guest. He's interesting. But about 8 things back, he also says he's voting for Trump. So,
Who said I'm voting for
no,
Trump?
David R. likes you. You're interesting, but he's also voting for Trump.
Well, I mean, you know what? Go for it. Vote for Trump. It's not going to
But
matter.
I'm not voting, at this point, I'm not voting for anyone except maybe the Green Party
listen,
guy.
I'm writing in Bernie Sanders. And if there's not a space on the ballot to write him in, I'm going to draw a fucking line at the bottom of the ballot and write his goddamn name in. And I don't
Okay, but hang on. Wait. I mean, this can't go on. Hang on. Jazz Galaxy says, here's the problem with the gun rhetoric. When you tell people they need sniper rifles and machine guns to take on the government when they want change, that's exactly Dallas. And my answer is yes. It's exactly Dallas. And
Well,
that is
look.
why we have to be very careful in how we talk about Dallas, okay? Because the guy committed a horrible crime. I'm glad he's dead. It was an awful thing he did. Those people did not deserve to be harmed, shot, killed, what have you. And it's tragic for so many people involved. But let's assume for a minute that that guy didn't have a number of psychological issues that right now he's starting to be painted as. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But let's assume for the point that I'm making is, it's irrelevant. The fact is, yeah, if you basically, let's assume that the videos that we saw earlier in the week of those innocent people getting shot were face value people getting shot that shouldn't have been shot and killed by the police. And let's also assume for a moment that it is rampant as a lot of people will have you believe. So assuming both of those things are correct, there is going to become a point where people who are being targeted in that way, what would you have them do?
Yeah,
Take these people to court? Our body cameras didn't work. Okay, I guess they didn't get indicted. Oh well, tough shit, I mean, I don't defend Dallas, but I certainly do defend the fact that when you push people to a certain limit and you just don't give them any breathing room and you're murdering their fathers and sons and brothers and sisters and kids every single fucking day, I can understand why somebody would say enough, and that would be what they would end up doing.
And look, it's not. I'm not condoning in any way the violence in Dallas or any of that. However, you have to understand that the reason that the Second Amendment exists in the first place, and I don't think we're at this point by any means, but if we do not do something to correct this obvious issue, it could come to that point, and I hope that it doesn't. But the reason that the Second Amendment exists is precisely so that there is at least, so that those in power will at least understand that if you come to try and take our inalienable rights, our sovereignty, as the people that grant the government the power to do our work for us. Again, it's the people in this country that have the power. The government does not have the power. We give it to them and we can take it away. That is how the Constitution is designed. And the point of the Second Amendment is just a final stopgap measure, inadequate as it may be, that at least if people in power ever chose to seize control, if there were a coup, if there were a tyrannical leader, Donald Trump, that decided that to hell with our laws, to hell with what's right and wrong, he's just going to dictate from the Oval Office everything, that at least he has to know that there's about 300 million people in this country and there's about 300 million guns. And believe me, when people say, well, you're never going to be able to fight the U.S. military, well, I don't think and again, I don't want to say this like I'm advocating for this. I hope that it never, ever, ever happens. But not every general in the United States military is necessarily going to side with the guy sitting in the Oval Office. So keep that in mind. It's not like it's just going to be Farmer John with his musket up against nuclear weapons necessarily. But the point of that amendment, and by the way, let's forget about tyranny for a minute from within. What happens if North Korea or China, down the road decides to launch a nuclear attack on the United States and they devastate us, and the only thing left to stop a land invasion afterwards are people that have guns because our military is decimated. Oops, we took all the guns. That's what the Second Amendment is for. And I'm sorry that it means that there's more violence in this society, but frankly, if you look at the statistics, in terms of assault rifle, what people call assault rifles, which by the way, assault rifles are not the AK 47s and AR-15s and all of that. Those are semi-automatics. They're not assault rifles. But the mass shootings in this country is a tiny, tiny fraction of what most of the gun violence in this country comes from. It comes from handguns. So
I don't think he's. Hang on, I don't think Cheerless. I don't think he's saying North Korea. Yeah. Take China instead. I don't think he's really getting into the realities that North Korea could do.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, what if scenario? I mean, that's another reason why the Second Amendment exists, is not just to protect ourselves from the tyranny of an internal threat, but also to keep in mind, now we're talking about nuclear weapons, but back then they were like, what happens if England comes back over and invades, or France invades?
Adam Dumoy says, yeah, Philip, just like in the great Chuck Norris film Invasion USA.
Oh my God! Did you see me on the elevator?
Escalator. We were in Invasion USA.
I was in Invasion USA.
That was, we drove to Atlanta with our friend Carrie and my daddy. Took us and he sat in the car, I think, the whole time.
No, he sat upstairs.
He sat upstairs. Yeah. And we were extras because they shot it in Atlanta.
In a closed-down shopping mall in Atlanta.
And I was so pissed because they're like, oh, it takes place at Christmas time and everybody should dress up. And I'm like, who the fuck dresses up to go to a shopping mall? But anyway, there you go.
If you look at one of the scenes...
Were you really in... We shot the scene. Were you actually in it?
Well...
I only saw it once in the theater.
I only saw it once. What they did was, they had the line of extras shopping at Christmas time in the mall, and they had us coming down the escalator.
Yes.
And all they did was they made just like a circle, a loop of people, and we'd go back
up
the stairs.
Yeah, so who knows what shot...
So, at any given moment, we could have been on the escalator, but we were definitely in that loop of people.
I am binge watching The Flash Season 2 right now, an awesome, awesome show, and every time they cut to the establishing shot of the Central City Police Department, if you watch those shows back to back to back, it's the exact same establishing shot, the exact same cop running up the steps really fast. It's so dorky, but anyway, whatever. All right. Well, anyway, y'all, it is late. We've been on this for a little over an hour, and thanks for watching. We may or may not do another one. It depends. If we're going to do another one, I want to get Philip a microphone. You need to have a camera, because people don't want to just hear your fucking voice. It's weird. Am I right? Tell. Do you guys want to see?
Let me ask everybody this.
Let me finish. Do you guys, if you ever, do you want to see another one of these where we discuss not games but politics? We can't discuss games because Philip doesn't.
I don't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit about games. Is it interesting? Is it engaging? Should we do another one? And if we do another one, would you want him to be this disembodied voice, or would you want to see him in his own camera on the screen?
Okay,
and while you're answering, he has something to say.
No, because here's the other way to phrase that question. Is what I'm saying interesting enough to you guys to tolerate the fact that you don't get to see my face, or is the fact that what I'm saying just you could take it or leave it? Because if you could take it or leave it, then I just will not be on the show at all.
Okay, this guy says, Chuck Norris influences everything. Then, make it all Howard Stern. I don't really know what that means. This guy says, it's weird, Philip. This guy says, I'm down, get him his own camera. Somebody else says, definitely video. Yeah, definitely interesting, says Jonathan Frank. He can wear a mask. Show your face, someone says. You should go get that mask I found today. I found the mask when I was cleaning out the kids' room. So anyway, all right.
Okay, well, you guys need to, part of the problem is...
Maybe if we did, this guy says at least get you a mic. I think if we got you a mic and it wasn't like you were in a well...
Yeah, the tech we have right now is just ad hoc. I mean, we could definitely set that up, no problem, if we're going to continue doing it. But in terms of being on camera, I don't see why it's all that important. But, I don't know. I'm more comfortable talking like this. I don't know. I just don't know.
I did a stream. No, I went on the Honey Badgers radio show about 2 months ago, and their host basically has this 3D puppet, and he's a dog, and it's an animating 3D dog. And within 5 minutes of talking to him, I thought I was just talking to this dog.
Oh, sure. You want to make me animated, that's fine.
That'd be cool.
That's fine.
Let's say the Dallas incident triggers a backlash from relatives of friends, victims, completely unrelated. Wouldn't that start a long game of revenge ping pong? Maybe. I would settle for a mic. It sounds like you're yelling at him and he's down the hallway. A mic is good enough. All right. So if we can find some good topics next week, then we'll...
I have no doubt whatsoever that by this time next week there won't be a topic to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure there will.
It's about to get even crazier.
All right. We're doing speed round. We have 3 more minutes and then I got to go. And so does Philip. So hang on. Set timer for 3 minutes. Okay. Any question that comes our way... No, stop, Siri. She's answering all of that. She's doing all of that. Look at this. She's doing all of it. This is amazing. Everything I'm saying, she's...
Okay, well, push the button.
Well, no, hang on. Set timer for 3 minutes.
Your timer's already running.
All right, keep
Would
it.
you like...
Okay, go. 3 minutes. Questions. Crazy Easter eggs in Twisted Metal 2. How did you conceive them? Be specific. I don't know what you mean. You mean like Statue of Liberty in a bikini?
Easter eggs are these things in video games that if you find...
The first one we ever found was an adventure on Atari. I learned how to do it on the playground in Brookwood Forest. Moku, what do you mean specifically? Is that what you mean? I mean, a lot of those we just came up with. We knew we wanted them. The team out in Utah came up with some. I suggested some. Would you guys touch on international topics? Yeah, we'll touch on anything. I met a Naughty Dog developer today. Good. Which one? I don't know what JS is. I've only met a few of them. They're really nice. Philip, my wife says, stop being crybaby. Show your face.
Tell your wife to look at your face.
While he's talking.
That should be enough for her.
So tell your wife to put headphones on and listen to this while she's looking at you. It's like a weird high-tech Cyrano de Bergerac. It'll be great. Oh, we got nothing. Do you remember me? I used to help you at GameStop. Andrew sue you. No. But I mean, I'm sure if I saw you, I would. Which GameStop? Here in Del Mar? Do you have any knowledge of the EU referendum, specifically the faces of the Leave campaign leaving the moment they won't and not helping the process? I honestly, Paisley, have not been following that. The RNC convention is next week. Ooh, that'll be good. I'm excited to see that. Yeah, you think there's violence, correct?
I mean, I'm not calling for it, but I mean, God, who doesn't at this point? I mean, do you not expect that these two conventions are going to be 1968 Chicago or worse? My God, the tensions just keep getting higher, and we're going into these crazy... Who knows? Donald Trump may not even get the nomination. If he doesn't, there's going to be riots. If he does, there's going to be riots.
Right.
And so, same with the Democrats.
It'll be fun to watch. How about the secret statue at the end of God of War? That is because back when we were kids, Activision used to do this thing that when you sent them a picture showing you a high score, they actually sent you a patch you could put on a jacket or whatever. And I always liked that there was some kind of concrete thing you could get at the end of a game, but Sony at the time wasn't set up to sort of send out things like that, and so that's where the God of War 1 phone number Easter egg came from. Tall Asian guy. Okay. Which one though? Oh, here in Del Mar. What are you doing now? That's it's more important to me. What are you doing? Because I don't see you at GameStop anymore. Do I plan on getting PS4 VR? Probably yes. We broke my fingers in that crazy clown final level of the last Twisted. Who broke my fingers? Oh, the one in the last Twisted Metal. Yeah. Yeah, we didn't have as much time on that boss as we did the other ones, and so it was probably tuned harder than it should be. Do you think Canada will hold all the reasonable people who will abandon the U.S. in a few months? No. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, it might happen, but Canada's not going to take them all.
Will another SOCOM game ever happen? You like SOCOM.
I love SOCOM. I'd love to see another SOCOM with the technology that we have today, like at the level of the latest Uncharted. I would go back and play.
What are your general thoughts on the new God of War? I think it looks cool. The team is the most thing I'm excited about is the team. They're a great team, so I want to see what they're making. Drawn to Death download just finished. What character weapon should I start with? You start with whatever the fuck you want because it's designed to all be balanced. And if it's not, let us know and we'll change it. So just whatever looks good, start with. But please go through training. If you don't go through training, it's an uphill climb.
Just like with the police.
Is Trump what's wrong with America?
No, Trump is a result of what's wrong with America.
I agree with that. All right, you guys. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you maybe next week. And see ya. Bye. How do I stop this? I gotta sneeze. All right, sneezing is happening. Oh, shit. Look at the light. Is that true? They said you.